Oh, hey, it's good to see you again. Today's episode is on The Rocketeer, which was released by the Walt Disney Company in 1991. I was only 10 years old when I saw this film, and wow, I remember loving it. I was clearly in their target demographic, yet still the film, I think, underperformed or maybe even flopped, but I didn't know about that. I just remembered that I loved it. So, clearly, it seems that Disney was trying to capitalize on the recent success that Warner Brothers had with Batman. Suddenly, comic books seemed like a good source of material for blockbuster adaptations. So, I wouldn't call myself a hardcore fan, but when I was doing preparation for this episode, I suddenly realized I had plenty of visual aids. For example, The Rocketeer, The Complete Adventures by Dave Stevens. Beautifully illustrated. R.I.P. Dave, you're a great artist. The official movie adaptation graphic novel. Miscellaneous trading cards. The Super Nintendo game. And just last year, IDW released The Rocketeer, The Great Race, a miniseries that picks up after the events of the movie. Finally, I spent too much money on this, but it is the Funko Pop of the Rocketeer. There's only one Rocketeer, so I knew I only needed to buy it once. My memories are a bit fuzzy because it has been 30 years since I've seen this movie. But I do recall being quite captivated by Jennifer Connelly, who plays the Betty Page-esque Jenny. And even at the tender age of 10 years old, I clearly was receptive and perceptive in my aesthetic sensibilities. So I look forward to seeing her and Alan Arkin and Timothy Dalton and Bill Campbell in this film. One funny memory I will share before we watch is this clearly had such an impact on me that I, in fourth grade, would draw sketches of the Rocketeer, and I drew a schematic of his rocket pack because I wanted to build one for myself. But I had recently learned about certain fossil fuels being dirtier than others, and so I knew we wouldn't use diesel fuel. So on my jetpack, I wrote unleaded fuel only on the schematic. And I got laughed at and ridiculed by a friend of mine who was much more scientifically minded than me. And, you know, when I think back on it now, that is probably the moment when I decided that a career in STEM was not for me. Surprisingly, I only own this film on VHS, so it'll really be just like I saw it back in the day. It's time to begin and see The Rocketeer again. We'll catch you after the credits roll. Yeah. See it again, see it again. Cinema, see it again. See it again. Cinema. See it again. See it again. Cinema. See it again. See it again. Cinema. See it again. See it again. And then talk about it. Hey, that was a lot of fun. I have to say that after 30 years, that film still holds up. You might have noticed I switched to the fedora. As I'm thinking about why I originally first fell in love with fedoras, it's amazing to me, but there were all these films that came out in my childhood that featured fedoras. I mean, Indiana Jones, Dick Tracy, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, this movie. I mean, there are so many fedoras. It's such a classic look. So I'm happy to rock it for you and for this episode. So let's get into the film. Some of the unexpected joys that I discovered is there are just character actors galore, actors that I recognize from other things that I didn't know when I was little. We've got the great William Sanderson, who's most known for being Sebastian in Blade Runner. There's the ever reliable and comical John Polito, who most people probably know from his work with the Coen brothers, R.I.P. There's also Eddie Jones. So it was a delight to see them. Also, Timothy Dalton, who was, then James Bond as a hero, getting to play a villain inspired by Errol Flynn. Totally a lot of fun. Some things I noticed that I didn't know then is all the kind of nifty cinematic allusions. I think when Peavy and Cliff are running, there's kind of a North by Northwest homage. I think Lothar, played by Tiny Ron Taylor, which is a great ironic name because the guy, as a former basketball player, was over 7 feet tall. He kind of had a Boris Karloff mixed with that assassin from Godfather 2. He was a lot of fun. Also, the kind of reference to other superhero comic movies like Superman, I would pay to see a man fly kind of thing. It's clear to me that everyone who was involved in this film, which had a very problematic development history, which you can read all about on the Wikipedia page, that there was this love of pulp serials in the 1930s. And originally, the very first people who were going to adapt it were going to film it in black and white to look like its inspiration, which was Commando Cody, another jetpack hero. So I'm glad that they didn't, because I think there's just so much that looks great with the look, from that golden helmet to the leather jacket to the flames. I think it would be a shame if this particular film were in black and white. And I can totally see why this director, Joe Johnston, would later be tapped 20 years later to do Captain America, the First Avenger, which I hope to revisit because I've only seen it once. I thought another cinematic allusion was both to Errol Flynn and his swashbuckling movies, but in some ways also Singing in the Rain, which seems to mine some of the same comedic material. I loved getting to see the closed Hollywood set. Jennifer Connelly was great as the role of Jenny, which they changed her name from the comics from Betty to avoid legal issues. Although Dave Stevens had a really good relationship with Betty Page and was really instrumental in making sure that her place in pop culture history is really well preserved. One other character actor that I loved seeing was Terry O'Quinn in the role of Howard Hughes. I didn't know who Howard Hughes was when I was 10 years old, but after seeing Martin Scorsese's Aviator, I have to say, wow, did a great job. Speaking of the lead actor, Billy Campbell, he was charismatic. He did a great job as the main character, Cliff Secord. Looking back on it now, he kind of is a mix of Heath Ledger, Josh Hartnett, and even Leonardo DiCaprio I could have seen in this role if he had been a little bit older at the time this movie was made. So it was fun. It didn't take itself too seriously. A lot of the special effects are fun, and the action sequences are great, and the set design. It just really makes the past of that 1938 Los Angeles look phenomenal. If you haven't seen this movie before, I recommend that you check it out. And if you saw it and loved it and are kind of wanting other things, I'd recommend you check out Dick Tracy, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the Indiana Jones trilogy, if you haven't seen that, because I think without that success, I don't think this film ever would have gone greenlit. The Shadow with Alec Baldwin, and Singing in the Rain, just for good measure. I mean, it's pretty much the greatest Hollywood musical ever. I'd like to dedicate this episode to the memory of Dave Stevens. Your artwork, your story, your creation, your passion for this kind of pulpy action adventure, it shines through in your comics and in this movie. And I just want to thank you for what you made. And you are missed, but you are not forgotten. Well, all right. That'll do it for this episode of See It Again Cinema, where old movies make magical new memories. We hope you enjoyed rewatching The Rocketeer. Please share some of your favorite memories of this great film down below. And as always, thanks for rewatching. We'll see you next time. See it again, see it again. Cinema, see it again, see it again. Cinema. Evan says back here, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark meets Top Gun. High concept right there. Wow.